Welcome back. We have a panel discussion now, and we have a very broad panel here with a lot of different insights. So this is going to be very interesting. We're going to discuss how we actually use data in the industry and we do cost optimization. So we'll start with some introductions. Samantha, if you would like to start.
Yeah, thank you, Carson. Good morning and good afternoon from wherever you're tuning in today. My name is Samantha Mullen. I'm from RWE Renewables, and I have a bit of a mixed background. I am a Category 2 certified vibration analyst using data analytics for component failure detection. And in the past year, I moved into a role supporting our operations team with an SAP upgrade, and I'm an SAP plant maintenance expert currently for RWE Renewables. So hope to bring a little bit of both of my experiences to the discussion with the other panelists today.
Giuseppe, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi. Thank you. Hi everyone. My name is GiuseppeFerraro, and I'm Director of Digitalization with focus on renewables optimization within GPM. My background is mechanical engineering, so I used to design wind turbines, mainframes, towers, rear frames before moving into the dark art of business development and strategy. And lately I've been involved in, a lot into team management and digitalization. I'm creating a team in Green Power Monitor that looks at advanced analytics in wind, solar, storage, and eventually grid integration.
Thank you. Richard?
Yeah, my name is Richard. I'm working in the wind industry for over 12 years now. I run my own company, which was basically taking care of 450 megawatt of wind assets from the sister company called InWind. I built up the whole operations team there starting from greenfield engineering, also from the wind turbine side. So we made all the licensing, and then I built up the operations team. And now we are focusing very much on digitalization and what we can do with all the data that we gathered over the last couple of years. That's it.
Thank you, Richard. Franz, will you say a little bit about, maybe also a little bit about SkySpecs?
Sure. Yeah, hi, my name is Franz. Originally from Canada, but now I'm over here in Europe. I have formerly come from Siemens, mechanical engineer by education, but now, as you can see, I've joined SkySpecs, and SkySpecs is started off as an inspection company using an autonomous drone. We've done over 90,000 inspections to date, 90,000 turbines. More recently, we do blade management, data management of the blades of all this inspection data that we've captured, and we're covering over 118 gigawatts on our platform called Horizon, with over 1,500 users on board. And even more recently, through a series of acquisitions, we're dabbling into financial asset management and CMS.
Thank you, Franz. I'm Carson Westergaard. I have a consulting company called Bespoke Solutions. I also I'm a senior advisor to India National Laboratories on wind energy, and one of the things that we operate relates a little bit to the previous talk is a mini wind farm, which is based on open source. So even the control system is open source, and all the turbines are linked on the same backbone, so you can research more advanced combinations of controls and operations, and also, of course, collect data. It's a highly instrumented site, so very, very relevant to something like this. But let's jump into it and discuss a little bit about the importance of really how we get the data and what is the value of the data, and how we convert that into actionable items. Because one thing is to get all this nice data, but the other thing is actually what do we do with it and how do we do it? That's very important. I don't know which one of you would like to jump in first and talk a little bit about the challenges in converting data into actionable items. Actionable.
Yeah, maybe I can kick off on the, coming into a digital-driven business. I realized very soon that we talk about data and we think that analyzing data and doing fancy things with the data is most of the challenge, while I realized that most of the times the big challenge is in acquiring data and cleaning data, which sounds not a fancy topic, but it in reality is the foundation for anything fancy, and in itself is not an easy task. It's not trivial.
I'll also add on, once you have your quality of data that you can trust, and you can have analysts that are making some recommendations based off of that data, it can become overwhelming for an end user group like your operations managers on site to be able to prioritize what they're being raised by CMS engineers. Like I mentioned, that's in my past, as well as SCADA analysts in the control room. So it's important also to allow for some way of the operations managers to take those insights that you're getting from the data and then prioritize them. So at RWE Renewables, with our self-perform strategy, we've worked endlessly to come up with a framework to be able to prioritize these data insights so that the operations managers can use what's most important as their priority to go and address at a turbine based off of our data.
Yeah, and I can also echo that. I mean, that's sort of how our software product Horizon got started. I mean, when we originally started taking thousands of photographs, we realized we couldn't deliver that sheer amount of data just as it was. And we needed to find a way to actually organize it, which also wasn't just, putting those pictures side by side and organize it by turbine, by blade and so on, but also having smart technological solutions of how to automate the collection of the data into the correct buckets, into the correct areas. So when the viewer actually wants to take a look at this information, they can see it in sort of an organized and meaningful way. But then even that became too much. You'd be looking at thousands of images, even if it was properly organized. So then what do you do next? Finding ways to automate the identification of damages, finding ways to turn that into trends, and so you can actually just look at the whole entire picture from a high level rather than having to dive into all the detail.
Yeah. Also from my side, of course, it's exactly the challenge that you said, Carson. It's making value out of data, and that's the challenge. And I think that also during these discussions and the other talks, we heard some pretty good examples of how it should be done. And as I also said during my talk, I think the goal is really to use the different specialist tools and interconnecting them with the different API systems of the software tools involved in the whole process, because there will not be one tool that does everything. So you have a specialist for this, you have a specialist for that, and you just need to make sure inside your organization that you're managing all those data in the correct way.
Yeah, I mean, one thing is to clean and get the data qualified, right? And there's the next phase is to analyze it, and then the next phase is how do you visualize for different audience as well inside the organization, because not everybody has the same need, and obviously, Samantha, as you said, not everybody wants to see everything and don't have the insight into the little nuances of complex data analysis. So that's one thing. So maybe we can the visualization of data. What do you think is how do you see that in your organization? What is the most powerful way of visualizing data, and what are the metrics that the receiver of data in the organization? What metrics do they look at, and how do they like to receive the data, and do they appreciate it?
I think from my point of view and from my experience is not the how it is visualized. That's not so important. The most important thing is that it is fast to understand what you need for your actual business case, and in the best case scenario, it's also very responsive, so that when you want to drill in deeper, you can do this with one click and not waiting for too long, so that everyone finds the right balance in what he needs for his task and what he wants to know in order to execute the task in the proper way. So therefore, I also think this prioritization is so important, because then you say, okay, top of the list, you need to do this and that, and maybe so it's for me again, it's not what is the best way of visualization. It's more like making sure that the right packages of data end up at the right levels or at the right endpoints in your organization. And this can be an email. For some, they are preferring emails. Others want to look at fancy dashboards. Again, others want to have SMS messages because they just work with that. And again, we need to be flexible. And that's what I like so much about the whole digitalization approach, is that you can be flexible as long as you have an overview about the data in your organization, and you have the different systems that you can connect with. It's just pick what you need and then give the user what they want.
Like Richard said, the audience is so important. And for us in our organization, I can see that dashboards can be very effective at the management level. So being able to see an entire fleet or a regional fleet and what detections that were made based off of data are overdue or are coming due helps in the planning process from maybe a budgetary standpoint. But then down on the site management level, you're wanting much more detail about what types of detections are happening at each of the turbines and how you're planning out the next 5 to 10 working days with actual materials and personnel on site. So we at RWE combine that through using our SAP platform, allowing notifications to be raised in external systems that our data analysts are using, external from SAP. They're developed internally by our company developers, but allowing notifications to be raised from those analytics tools directly in SAP, and then allowing the on-site planner, lead technician to take each of those notifications and raise them against single work orders at a turbine, so that both the planned maintenance, quarterly maintenance checkups are happening, as well as that diagnostic maintenance that's happening based off of our data analytics team in-house.
I think in our case, someone realized that there was this need for bespoke solutions and visualization, and that's why a few years ago the way the Green Power Monitor platforms were developed was to enable different customers to get different ways of visualizing the results and different combinations. So yeah, probably in our case was a great business opportunity. So I think that shows up in the discussions that we just had so far. So yeah,
more echoing of the same sentiments, I suppose. I mean, different types of strategies depending on the audience. We often sit down with all of our customers to sort of try to understand exactly what problem they're trying to solve. And then curtail the visualizations based on that, because we sort of have a front-end data visualization software that builds off of the database that contains all of the blade data and then some, basically whatever they want to put into it. You can hook in other data points as well. So some of our more involved customers use that to basically plug in all kinds of other types of things so they can compare.
Do you find that quantification of today? So when we get it up on the dashboard, Samantha, you mentioned budgets, right? So I think it goes for all of you. So once we have numbers. So, I mean, kilowatt hours is fairly easy to understand and grapple with, but they don't really do anything for us unless we put a price tag on them, and then or a KPI of some sort, right? And then so KPIs, dollars, quantification, right? That can be really hard to do. Blades, you have an inspection where you have a number of faults on the blade that you have observed. But how do you quantify these faults, and how do you prioritize them, and how do you put price tags on them, essentially? And by the end of the day, I guess you really like to see a price tag on everything, but I don't think we're quite there yet. But that flow stream is difficult to handle. You all have any comments on quantifying things?
I can talk about from the context once again of the blade inspection business. I mean, I think it's quite common now for a lot of people to use the 1 through 5 sort of severity rating system as to identify how severe something is. We're trying to take it a bit of a step further. We have a lot of blade engineers on staff that are actually looking into a lot of these different things. And using something that we call like an operational severity, so looking into the actual history of the blade itself, of if there's been any damages previously, if that damage has propagated year over year, also like taking into account blade model and those kinds of things to basically evolve that severity system. But at the end of the day, it is a reference. It is a blank number that is just comparing one to the other. And then on top of that, to get to the financial outlook, you can apply, predicted costs that would be based on data, based on historical data, based on actual repair cost data, to try to have a financial outlook.
Yeah, from the owner-operator standpoint, a lot of the factors that play into whether or not something is going to cost you money depends on whether the wind is blowing that day. And it's going to be a matter if you can forecast what the wind outlook is going to be over the next few days, and then take those diagnoses and the planned work that you have ready for a certain set of turbines, you can really prioritize what is going to make the most financial sense and when you're going to plan that work, so that it can happen in a timely manner, so that you're increasing reliability of the turbine and avoiding future downtime, while also taking advantage of a low output, low power generating time of the day or a week, so that you can do that work when it's not going to impact the bottom line.
So planning is an important element of costing, so the cost of planning and the cost of time gaps.
Yeah, absolutely. And it could be that getting a turbine back online immediately. For example, it faults in the morning. You would assume, okay, getting that turbine back online might be the first priority of the site. But a strategy that we're taking in RWE is looking at the farm holistically and then the turbine holistically, and determining what is going to be a more long-term reliability win for that turbine versus getting it back online as quickly as possible. Also taking into account if, getting out there 3 hours earlier and getting it online is actually going to give us the return that we need it to, versus waiting and attacking something at a turbine that needs a CMS inspection and a replacement right away that will have more long-term benefits.
So more predictive maintenance than reactive, essentially.
Exactly.
You're moving towards. Is that a general trend that our data flows need to? There's a sort of an obvious answer. Are we there? Where the hurdles is to become more and more predictive in data flows?
Yeah, I think one of the hurdles is the culture that is at an operational wind farm is built and has been built upon keeping the turbines running as much as possible. And like I said, going out to that first turbine that's faulted in the morning and addressing it, because the wind turbines need to be online and available. So we've been measuring the performance of a wind farm through availability for a very long time versus reliability and power output. And when you're an operator, you have benefits from both. There's different incentives for different operating models, but as an owner-operator, the power generation is just as important as availability. So there's definitely a culture change there for the actual maintenance strategy on site. And then you have to back that up and kind of guide that culture change by making sure that the site operations team can trust the data. And we get our data to a quality that can be trusted by having a continuous feedback loop from the site operations teams when there's a detection that's made through SCADA data or CMS data. When we get, or the data analytics team gets that feedback about the severity and the time that is expected that it could have kept running, or if it was too early, too late, then that helps to tailor and to improve those detections going forward, so that we aren't giving just a severity 1 through 5, we're giving an outlook on what the operational life is and when it needs to be addressed. So I think that there's a culture shift and there's a feedback loop that needs to help support the data insights so that the site operations teams can trust their data analysts in the office.
I have to jump in on that a little bit and play the devil's advocate, because I see as a big problem in the industry, and I mean it's just an observation that you cannot easily shift working times as you please when the wind is not blowing, because you have also like laws that you need to apply to, and in all the things that I tried throughout my business life with the service companies, it was always very limited in success when I wanted to detour a team to make different tasks than they had, because they said, okay, when I now shift my scheduled work, my regular maintenance, then I might get out of my maintenance window, and then I get some reliability issues or some certification issues. So there is only a little things that you can do in terms of shifting your workforce when there is no wind or low wind periods, because there are just too many variables in the equation, and of course directing people into the right direction is what we can do from our perspective. We have data, we have the knowledge, and we can say, okay, this is also something that you need to have in consideration. But the actual planning process and what can actually be done is influenced by way more. There might be a sick leave somewhere and the team is not operational and things like that. So it's really, really, really complex. But again, even if we increase or like make the planning process a little bit better, then we have achieved a lot of additional revenue because that's what we should focus on. Always do the doable and not try to achieve the not doable. And I think this comes to the other part of your question, where you said, is everything going towards a predictive maintenance? I think also the predictive maintenance, and this is also something that I learned from the whole CMS industry. The problem is when you prevent something from happening, you don't have the proof that it would actually have happened. And then you get into the problem of self-justification, because you're telling them you have to replace it. Of course, then it never breaks. And so it's really also what Samantha said about finding the right amount of trust towards the technicians. So they need to realize that what you're saying is not bullshit, that what you're saying is actually a fraction of the truth at least, and then they will go happily on the side when you said there is something potentially, because in 9 out of 10 times they at least found a little thing, and it was worth the travel. That's also what I.
There's definitely a practical problem there. Giuseppe, you look like you were going to say something.
No, I was going to comment. Yeah, that's a very nice angle. We talk about fancy stuff, and then the practicality is that, of course, if you replace something that has not failed, people might argue, well, yeah, how do you know whether the failure was going to happen? Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's a practical angle to the whole discussion. Yeah, maybe the counter argument is that if you account for the downtime, of course, that the failure would have caused, then you might have a better counter argument in that case, because we're talking about thousands of dollars or euros or pounds. So yes, that's another good counter argument.
Yeah, well, I mean, it can be complex, right? Because you have different KPIs on site level than you have in the back office and the data-driven part of the organization pushing this out, and then you send people out to do an inspection, and it turns out it was useless because there was nothing. Right? So that creates a mistrust in the organization. Then the data will then, it's sort of a trust issue, I guess you can really say. Not just the data quality, but the trust issue that you need to push out important data, right? So the filtering is very, very important. I think, Franz, in the drone business, I think one of the things we have seen, right, that people get very fascinated with AI, and you can detect so and so many things on the blades, where a large number of those, that's great, but it's just a dirt spot, it's a tiny crack that's not important. And so you're pushing too much data when you make the analysis too sophisticated. And so there's a balance between showing too little and too much, right? I think that, I don't know if you have any comment on that's particularly true. I think for the history of the drone business, at least.
Well, yeah, we can definitely relate to that. We have certain customers that have actually complained about having too many observations released because we had the tendency to mark, everything that was noticed. But I mean, with the proper tools and processing, as you said, you can get around that. Being able to filter through the noise, eliminate what goes on, even just translate all of our observations into whatever output that they want. That's another thing that we try to do. We can sort of engineer sort of a translation engine, so the result does become a little bit more in line what they want based on their risk tolerance of what they're looking for. And yeah, once again, helps cut through the noise, which can lead to quicker analysis and turnaround times.
Do you pre-curate your data sets for your customers yourself, or do they tend to do that themselves before they push it out in their workflow streams? Like, do you review the results, then you push it to the customer, or do the customer review all this before they push it into their?
It depends on the customer. I mean, in our case, the data that we're talking about, at least on the blade side, I can't speak for the other side, is visual. It's all visual data that we try to turn into some sort of digital representation by effectively creating what we call an annotation. So it is, drawing a little boundary box and then assigning it a result. So that is a classification in terms of a definition, like a type, subtype, is it a crack? Is it a, erosion and so on? And then pushing that through. So we do that. Of course, we have a lot of customers who have plenty of blade engineers on their own side. Some of them are even the designers of the blades, so they have a lot of blade knowledge in-house. So in that case, they go through it themselves as well. But even them, for the most part, they like using us to identify something and then going through and evaluate whether or not they agree with the result. And there it goes down to the trust thing again, is that in some cases there's not always that trust there because, their organization, if they're an OEM, for example, they probably collectively have, hundreds of years, well, maybe not hundreds, but like 100 years of blade design and repair experience where, we can't honestly say that we have that.
Yeah, there's multiple data point, right? We were talking about a little bit earlier today, like the speed of the data that comes off blades is not particularly high in that aspect, right? Whereas the CMS system is completely different. It comes in with a millisecond, so it's a completely different amount of data that you get for the same thing. But in some sense, we're also, by not acting on the data, we're also imposing risk into the future operation, right? So how do we manage that balance between the risk we are essentially taking, and how do we visualize the risk that we're taking by not taking the action based on the information that's that's a bit of a challenge, right? Because it's sort of the opposite of setting KPIs. I don't know if you'd like to comment on that.
But I think it's again this idea of being able to find trustworthy partners, because when I have we also work with drone companies and they push results into our system, and then in the best case scenario, when I know that these people do their job correctly, then I don't even need to review them. I just, as an owner and operator, I just need to make sure that all category 3 to 5 issues are reported to the right repair company, and then I get a quote, and then I can make sure that it is handled correctly. Maybe I check a few of those just as a plausibility check, but when I find the right partners throughout the whole value chain of data collection and acting with this knowledge, then I can really save a lot of time and add a lot of security to my operations and secure also the value of my assets. And that's what I like about this digitalization. Not everyone needs to have a blade expert insourced. I can have a drone company that provides data. Then I can give in my platform access to a blade expert that I just pay on an hourly basis. He reviews this data, and then I can just say, okay, it's checked, it's trustworthy, and I just act upon it by getting quotes. And the same goes for the results from this I4C corporation that I mentioned before, or any other software provider or service provider. It's always find the right one, integrate it in your own processes, and make sure that these processes work flawlessly. Because at the end, not the data has the value, only the actions unlock the values that are found by the data, and that's really the shift in paradigm that we need to achieve. It's not the centralization of data. Big data is a very cool buzzword and all good, but only when we do something with that data that is meaningful, then we can unlock the value.
So it comes into making that expert GUI, I guess you could call it. Giuseppe, is benchmarking, does that help create those type of expert advice inside a platform?
Yeah, I was going to comment
about this earlier today.
Yeah, in advanced analytics is a similar picture. So we are starting to look and promote models where for gearboxes, for instance. I mean, there is no point in trying and gather all the experts that we've got in DMV to look at the, I don't know, many different types of gearboxes, depending on how many different types of drivetrains we can detect. But rather, we think that it makes more sense to engage with the gearbox specialists who know once a signal is coming in for a specific gearbox model on a specific machine, what that means, rather than us spending a lot of effort in developing the models and then probably still being a little bit far behind because we were not the guys who developed the systems in the first place. I think we want to focus and funnel our knowledge in different areas where we've got higher expertise, and then, if possible, delegate to the experts. Trust is another focus point, because in some cases the people who are experts may be offering some services or tools that are competing against the ones that we are offering, and that's where we have to embrace the challenge and essentially, how do you say, bite the bullet and try and understand that it's for the greater benefit of the wind energy industry, with some, of course, barriers to IP protection, because no one wants to share IP for free. But I think, as you mentioned, once you find a good partner, a reliable partner, it's like integrating and offering something to your customers that is bigger than what you could have offered alone. And that's I think where we solve the problem. We offer something that is better to our customers. Everyone makes a little bit more money, I think, and I think that's where digitalization and ecosystems start to work.
It's data trading, I guess. I learned that expression today.
Data trading. Yeah,
I haven't really picked up on that one before. We only got a few minutes left. Audience, welcome to post questions in the discussion and QA if you like. Anybody have something they think we should cover here in the last few minutes, or that we have missed in our discussion?
Maybe just jumping off of what Giuseppe brought up about data trading, or developing tools with a partner. From the operator side, we often have lots of access to a lot of data, and as an owner operator with many different wind turbine models and platforms, we often have more data in more areas, specific scope areas, than we can even use to be able to develop our own in-house tools. So there's definitely value that we see from the owner-operator side as well in collaborating with a developer who has the time and resource, but maybe not the data already, to get on early with a developer of a new tool to help kickstart with the initial data, the validation and the machine learning, the training of the machine learning algorithms to eventually have a viable product. And then, of course, we know that technology is then going to be used for other customers from that developer, but we've been in early, and we're helping to collaborate and to really shape what that tool looks like, and is pretty much tailored to what we need as well. So we've had some partnerships that have worked out really well in that area. We've had tools that we've developed in-house, but there really is a cost-benefit analysis that you have to take a look at when you're determining if you want to develop something completely in-house and on your own versus collaborating with a partner. So I just wanted to say, from the owner-operator standpoint, it can be a win-win situation as well.
Yeah, I think that's very well said. The many layers and the many layers of knowledge, right? Component suppliers know everything about their component, but nothing about where it goes. An OEM knows supposedly everything about what they put in their turbine, but they don't get the broader picture that you do as an owner-operator, where you see across everything. And then there's the independence, so to speak, like SkySpecs, that's coming across everything as well, but with a different perspectives, or the many different perspectives, really what creates the value of the data, I guess. What's maybe be the bottom line of this discussion here. All right, I think we're out of time, so thank you very much for your time, and great discussion, and I look forward to see you in the next session. Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.